Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live through the end of the world? For the people of the Western Roman Empire, this wasn't just a movie plot. It was their reality. The fall of Rome wasn't a single event, but a slow, grinding decline that spanned centuries. So, how did one of the greatest civilizations in history crumble into dust? Let's travel back in time and uncover the story. To understand the fall, we first have to appreciate the peak. Picture the Roman Empire in the 2nd century AD, during the reign of emperors like Trajan and Hadrian. This was the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The empire stretched from the drizzly shores of Britain to the sun-scorched deserts of Mesopotamia. A vast network of roads connected bustling cities, trade flourished, and a common culture united millions of people. Rome was the center of the known world, a beacon of law, engineering, and military might. It seemed invincible, but as we all know, nothing lasts forever. The first cracks began to show in the 3rd century. This period is so chaotic that historians call it the crisis of the 3rd century. It was a perfect storm. The empire became too large and unwieldy to govern effectively from a single capital. Political instability became the norm. Imagine this. In just 50 years, Rome had over 20 different emperors. Most of them were generals who seized power through military coups, and their reigns often ended violently. This constant civil war drained the treasury, disrupted trade, and weakened the army's ability to defend the frontiers. The once mighty legions were too busy fighting each other to fight off external threats. Speaking of external threats, let's talk about the barbarians. Now, the Romans called anyone who wasn't Roman a barbarian, but these were complex societies with their own cultures and motivations. Groups like the Goths, Vandals, and Franks had lived along the Roman borders for centuries. Sometimes they traded, sometimes they raided. But as the 4th and 5th centuries rolled on, the pressure intensified. Why? A major factor was the arrival of the Huns from the east, a nomadic people whose military prowess pushed other tribes, like the Goths, into Roman territory, not just as raiders, but as entire peoples seeking refuge. The Roman response was inconsistent. Sometimes they fought them, sometimes they hired them as mercenaries, or foederati, to fight for Rome. This seemed like a clever solution at first. Why risk Roman lives when you can pay someone else to do the fighting? But it backfired spectacularly. These Germanic warriors were loyal to their commanders and their paychecks, not to the abstract idea of Rome. Over time, the Roman army became less, Roman. This reliance on foreign soldiers created a military that was powerful, but had no deep-seated loyalty to the state it was supposed to protect. While the borders were under pressure, the empire was rotting from within. The economy was a mess. To pay for the massive army and a bloated bureaucracy, emperors resorted to desperate measures. They raised taxes to crippling levels, especially on farmers and the middle class. They also debased the currency, meaning they minted coins with less and less precious metal. Your shiny silver denarius from a century ago was now mostly bronze. This led to rampant inflation. People lost faith in money, and the complex trade network that was the lifeblood of the empire began to seize up. The rich retreated to their massive, self-sufficient country estates, the latifundia, becoming like feudal lords, and leaving the cities to decay. Socially, the empire was also changing. The traditional Roman values of civic duty and public service were fading. A growing gap between the super-rich and the desperately poor created widespread discontent. Many people felt disconnected from the government in distant Rome, or later, Ravenna. On top of this, a new force was reshaping society: Christianity. Initially persecuted, Christianity was adopted as the state religion by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. While it offered hope and a strong community for many, some historians argue it also shifted people's focus from the earthly empire to the promise of a heavenly kingdom, potentially weakening traditional Roman patriotism. The church also became a new power structure, sometimes competing with the state for influence and resources. By the late 4th century, the situation was dire. In 378, at the Battle of Adrianople, a Roman army led by the Emperor Valens himself was utterly destroyed by the Goths. This was a devastating psychological blow. It showed the world that the Roman legions were not invincible. The Goths were now a permanent, powerful force inside the empire's borders. The final act came in the 5th century. The Western Roman Empire, already weakened and divided, began to fracture. The Vandals crossed into North Africa, Rome's breadbasket, cutting off the vital grain supply. This was a catastrophic economic blow. Then came the infamous sackings of Rome itself. In 410, the Visigoths under Alaric breached the walls and plundered the city for 3 days. While Rome was no longer the political capital, it was the symbolic heart of the empire. The shockwave was immense. Less than 50 years later, in 455, the Vandals did it again, sacking the city even more thoroughly. The final fall is often dated to the year 426. But there was no epic final battle, no dramatic last stand. A Germanic chieftain named Odoacer, who was the de facto commander of the Roman army in Italy, deposed the last Western Roman emperor. His name was Romulus Augustulus, ironically combining the name of Rome's founder and its first emperor. He was just a boy, a puppet on a throne. Odoacer didn't even bother to name a successor. He simply sent the imperial insignia, the symbols of power, to the Eastern Roman emperor in Constantinople, basically saying, "We don't need one of these anymore over here." And that was it. The Western Roman Empire was gone. But was it really a fall? Many historians today prefer the term transformation. Roman culture didn't just vanish. The language, Latin, evolved into modern languages like French, Spanish, and Italian. Roman law became the foundation for many modern legal systems, and the Catholic Church, headquartered in Rome, preserved much of Roman learning and administrative structure throughout the Middle Ages. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive for another 1,000 years, seeing itself as the true continuation of Roman glory. So the fall of Rome wasn't caused by one single thing. It was a complex, multi-century process. It was political corruption and civil war. It was economic collapse and overtaxation. It was over-reliance on foreign mercenaries and immense pressure on its borders. It was social decay and the rise of new belief systems. It was a perfect storm of internal and external pressures that eventually overwhelmed a system that had once seemed eternal. The story of Rome's fall is a powerful reminder that even the mightiest empires are fragile, and that the seeds of destruction are often sown during times of greatest prosperity. It's a lesson from history that still resonates with us today. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think was the biggest factor in Rome's decline? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey back in time, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you in the next video.